the technicalities of the judgment?
Very, very technical and complex constitutional case, because remember that it was the Constitutional Court itself in 2005, in 2015 last year, when the Tlokwe independent candidates took the matter to the Constitutional Court, and the Constitutional Court said, based on the incomplete voters roll that the independent candidates got back in the 2013 Tlokwe by-elections, that those elections were free and were not free and were not fair as well. So that was the ruling from the Constitutional Court, that the voters' roll needs to be in order. And now we have a Constitutional Court that says, actually, we know that the voters' roll needs to be in order, but for the sake of having these elections go ahead, it's fine. We are suspending we're suspending some of the stuff which is inconsistent with the Constitution when it comes to the voters' roll. So the elections will go ahead, certainly, and the IEC is quite ecstatic about that.
But then the judgment gives the Electoral Commission until June 2018 to provide addresses on the voters' roll before the 2019 polls. So
what this means is that in the next couple of months, 18 months if I'm not mistaken, the IEC needs to make sure that it gets all the addresses sorted out. And the other question is the issue of available addresses. This means where addresses are available, those addresses must be furnished. And where you find somebody who's homeless perhaps, but who can situate themselves that this is a place of my residence, it might not be a formal house, I might not have a formal address, but this is where I sleep every night, and that address would then, that specific space would then become that person's address, and that's how the IEC would be able to identify where that person lives. But you can remember that even after the 2015 Constitutional Court ruling, the IEC had already started to put that in place, but it seems as though that the deadline was too short, because in February this year they had to have the by-elections go ahead in Tlokwe, and of course the independent candidates went to the Electoral Court, which decided to suspend those postpone those elections, and eventually the IEC also decided to suspend all by-elections going forth.
Something that Judge Mogoeng said is he said that to avoid a constitutional crisis, it's up to the upper guard to do its job. What did he mean by this?
Just going to read you something out of this judgment, actually, where it says that ordinarily it would have been easy to dismiss the IEC's request on the basis that the situation in which it finds itself is of its own making, because remember that a Parliament had already enacted that the IEC should ensure that there's a voters' roll that includes the addresses of people, because remember that political parties have been making a case that people will be bussed into various districts to come and vote, and there'll be vote rigging that'll be taking place, and there's no guard put in place to ensure that that doesn't happen. And the mechanism, the remedy that was put in place is to make sure that you have addresses of people. The IEC since 2003 seemingly did not do that, and now we have a situation where we could have had a constitutional crisis had the Constitutional Court not ruled the way that it ruled at the moment.